we cried when we remembered Jerusalem. We were sick, Lord, near to dying. Oh,
Shalom, shalom, family. Welcome to another Tanakh review. My name is Zurishaddai, one of the teachers of Congregation BINAH CHOKMAH, located in the Red section of Brooklyn, New York, giving honor, glory, and praise to the Most High King of the universe for life, food, clothing, and shelter, knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. And I pray that the Creator of heaven and earth will continue to bless each and every one of us, that He will bless us with life, with health, and with all the things desirable for us to continue, be able to praise His name. We ask that the Most High God continue to be with those who are downtrodden, the poor, the needy, the destitute, the fatherless, the widow, that the Creator will look out for all those who are on their sick beds and those who are recovering from any ailment. We pray that the Creator be with you all. And we thank the Most High God for allowing us to be here once again. And I pray that the Most High God would guide us as we continue in this journey we call life, and that He would bless us. So today, first starting out by saying early Shabbat Shalom to all out there, and also to everyone out there who might be going through something. Remember that the Creator is always here for us. We have to be willing to bring it to Him and bring it before Him so that He'll be able to help us. So with that, we're going to move straight ahead, and I'm going to pass it on to one of my teachers and one of my mentors, even Nasik Zurishaddai ben Yehudah, who will be going over the portion, the parsha of Wayechi. How are you, Nasik?
Great, Brother Hashem. First of all, I'd like to give praise to the Supreme Intelligent Universe, God of my forefathers, God of Abraham, God of Isaac, God of Jacob, the respective platform on the D.C.B channel platform, spiritual leader, Chief Prince Area Ben Saska, to the host Chief Uzael, to the Princess Chief, Kohanim, Rabbinate, Maureen, brothers and sisters, and visitors to the channel. I greet you all in the time of forefathers. Shalom Aleichem and early Shabbat Shalom. And I'd like to start off with Adonai, Septadi, Dako, Piyagiti, Atheka. Oh Lord, open out my lips and my mouth to declare the praise. Well, I didn't complete it YAH, but we're coming into the last part of Wayechi, and we're talking about Judah's approach, and we learned last time. Well, when we spoke about how that Judah actually addressed the weight of the outcome of the verdict, how it's not only punishing one individual, but it's punishing more than one individual in that. So he wasn't defending the theft concept that Benjamin was charged with, Benjamin was charged with. He defending, the concept of a judgment should only affect the party involved and not everyone involved. Everyone else that's not involved, excuse me. And so this caused Joseph for a quick breakdown. And then he asked, is my father still alive? I'm Joseph, and it shocked him. And so without going over it, because I want to complete this here particular section of the book, Wayechi, and they couldn't, they were shocked. They never mentioned the guy's name, the brother that was missing. And that's a strange question when they said the father would die if he died. Die if the boy is taken from him and come back. So how would they know if their father's still yet alive if they're standing right there where he at this point in time? And yet they say, yeah, he's alive. According to last they was in his presence. So there's a lot of things you could just talk about within the questioning that Joseph did concerning and identifying himself and his brothers in the different identification styles that's used there. As far as the language, as far as the name, and They go so far, according to tradition, said he showed that he was circumcised, in that sense. So he had the covenant on him. And then he sends them back to, and bring their father back. So now we spoke on it before. I spoke on it last time, in the sense that now Jacob was in mourning for 22 years. His father had to endure a son that refused to be comforted for 12 years. That's a long time when your son is mourning a son that's for 22 years, and yet you didn't mourn your grandfather when he died, as long. And the grandfather, and then mourn, read his grandfather mourn his wife, who he loved, that long. He didn't mourn the love of his life, which was Raquel, that long. So, there's a lot of, different things could be addressed within that, but just to move on forward, I just want to bring out some other things. When they address, when they get back and address their father, that Joseph is alive, and explaining his position, the father couldn't believe it. He couldn't believe that Joseph was alive after all this time. And a lot of times you could say, why I can't believe it? Because he refused to hear the verdict that Joseph is gone, refused to accept the fact that Joseph is gone. So it's viewpoints on both sides to that. And when we look, as he goes down to Egypt, he's seen the wagons and stuff like that, and there's always a commentary concerning the wagon. And he talked about, he went down there with 70 souls, But when you look at the numeration of the children that's coming from Leah, you count the names that's there, and you can come up with 32, and it should be 33. So why count those names? And then you notice it counts the names of some people that's not even going, such as and Onan. So what is meant by that when it counts those particular names. All right. So then that's another area. When we go through the genealogy, there's a lot of questions and a lot of thoughts and a lot of pearls that you could pick up just from going through those names and knowing somewhat the history that existed at that time. All right, so when Jacob finally arrives, just in the 47th chapter. All right. Well, let's meet. Let's go here to 28th chapter, 46. 46th chapter, 28th verse. All right. And he sent Judah before him unto Joseph to show the way before him unto Goshen. All right. And they came in the land of Goshen, and Joseph made ready his chariot and went up to meet Israel his father to Goshen. And he presented himself unto him and fell on his neck and wept on his neck a good while. And Israel said unto Joseph, now let me die, since I have seen thy face. Thou art yet alive. And Joseph said unto his brethren and unto his father's house, I will go up and tell Pharaoh, and I will say unto him, my brethren in my father's house, who were in the land of Canaan, are come unto me, and the men are shepherds, for they have been keepers of cattle, and they have brought their flocks and their herds, and all that they have. And it shall come to pass when Pharaoh shall call you, and you shall say, what is your occupation? That ye shall say, thy servants have been keepers of cattle from our youth even unto now, both we and our fathers, that ye may dwell in the land of Goshen. For every shepherd is an abomination unto the Egyptians. I addressed that in the past. Now, their occupation was shepherds. Is Joseph afraid of that? I mean, embarrassed behind that, since it's an abomination. And even just being a Hebrew, they associate them as being shepherds. But he want them to say they're like cattle barren. We really don't have. We invest in that business. In other words, we got different flocks. We got goats. I mean, we got bulls and stuff, and oxen and all that, and donkeys, everything like that. We got all that kind of stuff. So we in the business of purchasing, buy, sell, and retail, and all that kind of stuff. This would what you gather from that particular area there. Where Joseph himself was an assistant as a shepherd to the handmaids' sons. So he really didn't have the best skill in that area of that. He was, I guess, being groomed or something else. That's what made his stay with the different masters he had in Egypt, the one that brought him and then the one that was over the prison. Unique that, he working in areas that he had no familiarity with, but he usually didn't work as a field hand. So he didn't work as a field hand. Even when you think about Joseph himself, even when he was sent out to his brothers, which I'm going to cover later on, because I understand a certain question was asked later on in the evening about and dealing with the blessings, which I'm going to cover, so I won't forget. Brother brought to me last night after Mosaic Shabbat about a question that was mostly puzzling a lot of people, and I'm trying to share the answer I have for that particular question about Jacob taking land back with the sword. All right, so I'll move on just a little bit, and in the 47th chapter, I'm gonna skip down here to let me see. I should start right here. Oh, this is important here, so I might as well start from the top. 47th chapter. Then Joseph went in and told Pharaoh and said, "My father and my brother and their flocks and their herds and all that they have are come out of the land of Canaan, and behold, they are in the land of Goshen." And from among his brethren he took 5 men and presented them unto Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto his brethren, "What is your occupation?" And they said unto Pharaoh, "Thy servants are shepherds, both we and our fathers." And they said unto Pharaoh, "To sojourn in the land are we come, but there is no pasture for thy servant flocks, for the famine is sore in the land of Canaan. Now therefore we pray thee, let thy servants dwell in the land of Goshen." All right, they presented that as well. Now they're already there in the land of Goshen. And Pharaoh spoke unto Joseph and saying, "Thy father and thy brethren are come unto thee, the land of Egypt before thee. In the best of the land make thy father and thy brethren to dwell in the land of Goshen. Let them dwell. And if thou knowest any able men among them, make them rulers over my cattle." And Joseph brought in Jacob his father and set him before Pharaoh. And Jacob blessed Pharaoh. And Pharaoh said unto Jacob, "How many are the days of your years of thy life?" And Jacob said unto Pharaoh, "The days of the years of my sojournings are 130 years. Few and evil have been the days of the years of my life, and they are not attained unto the days of the years of the life of my fathers in the days of their sojourn." And Jacob blessed Pharaoh and went out from the presence of Pharaoh. Okay, now what is interesting, we read about the dream. We talked about the dream. 7 years, plenty coming out the land. 7 years of famine. So now we're talking about pastoral land. So that means that the famine affected growing certain type of crops, but not everything in the land. Because if you got to talk about pastoral land, you could have just plain a little bit of grass foliage, but not enough to really sustain like crops like wheat and whatever else you might need. And Egypt had already stored up grain. So this is something to think about, that you're going over there to a spot, the best of the land of Egypt, when there was a famine. So it's and we know that we had like 5 more years of the famine. All right, and I'm gonna go into the 13th verse. It says of the 47th chapter, and it says, "And there was no bread in all the land, for the famine was very sore, so that the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan languished by reason of the famine. And Joseph gathered up all the money that was found in the land of Egypt and the land of Canaan for the corn which they brought. And Joseph brought the money into Pharaoh's house. And when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, all right, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence, for our money is failed." Now, it's an interesting thing to say. That 15th verse, a lot of times, most people don't, talk about it as much. It said, when the money was all spent in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. Then it says, comma, all the Egyptians came unto Joseph and said, give us bread, for why should we die in thy presence, for our money is failing. Well, if the money failed in Canaan, what was they subsisting on? How was they surviving? And then that's something to think about and discuss with your teachers. And Joseph said, give your cattle, and I will give you bread for your cattle if money fail. And they brought their cattle unto Joseph, and Joseph gave them bread in exchange for the horses and for the flocks and for the herds and for the asses, and he fed them with bread in exchange for their cattle for that year. And when that year was ended, they came unto him the second year and said unto him, we will not hide from our Lord how that our money is all spent, and the herds of cattle are my Lord's. There is naught left in us in the sight of my Lord, but our bodies and our lands. Wherefore should we die before thy eyes, both we and our land? Buy us and our land for bread, and we and our land will be bondsmen unto Pharaoh, and give us seed, that we may live and not die, and that the land be not desolate. So Joseph brought all the land of Egypt for Pharaoh, for the Egyptians sold every man his field, because the famine was sore upon them, and the land became Pharaoh. And as for the people, he removed them city by city, from one end of the border of Egypt, even to the other end thereof. Only the land of the priests brought he not, for the priests had a portion from Pharaoh, and they eat their portion, which Pharaoh gave them. Wherefore they sold not their lands. Then Joseph said unto the people, behold, I have brought you this day in your land for Pharaoh. Lo, here is seed for you, and you shall sow the land. And it shall come to pass at ingathering that ye shall give a fifth unto Pharaoh, and 4 parts shall be yours, for seed of the field, and for your food, and for them that of your household, and for the food for your little ones. And they said, thou hast saved our lives. Let us find favor in thy sight, in the sight of my Lord, and we will be Pharaoh's, quote, Pharaoh's bondsmen. And Joseph made it a statute concerning the land of Egypt unto this day, that Pharaoh should have the fifth. Only the land of the priests alone became not Pharaoh's. And Israel dwelt in the land of Egypt and the land of Goshen, and they got them possessions therein, were fruitful and multiplied exceedingly. I wanted to finish that out because when we get ready to close out in Genesis, Bereshit, that it's a lot to be considered here. Joseph displacing people. That's a good thing or a bad thing? You uprooting certain inheritance that might have been in family for generations. Good thing or bad thing? Because these things we got to bear in mind as we get into the book of Exodus. Now, who started a little rough situation? First. Seemed a little bit rough first. Was it Joseph that started first, or the Egyptians that started first? A little rough situation. So this is some of the things and moral issues that need to be discussed amongst people, because I'm always about, especially when we discuss Torah, Tanakh itself, is try to find the moral value according to God. When it says Sadek, Teodor, righteousness pursue. So that's very important to understand going forward with different things that, in different events that happen, because that sometimes, and as I said in the past, we pursue unjust means to procure justice, and that's not just at all. So, so this is things that we must consider going forward. And as we look at this here, another interesting factor is that he told his, the people, his father, his brothers earlier, that they had, they're only in the second year of the famine. So if they're in the second year of the famine, when Jacob and them get there, if we think of it as a chronological order, how is it after Jacob gets there that Joseph saying, okay, I'm gonna give you some seed to plant. You couldn't store up stuff where it stay fresh. And all those that try to store up stuff, obviously it must have failed. When they try to store up, storehouses with crops and surplus, they fail. Only the ones that Joseph was in charge, and he was able to store it up properly where it wouldn't be eaten by rodents and it wouldn't spoil. And so this is something to consider. I know we'll try to paint a visual picture of what's going on when we look into the book of Genesis. And then when Jacob's come and he blessed Pharaoh, what do he bless him with? And what is the blessing? And how is it being prosperous for him? Joseph already got the people to sell themselves, and yet he displaces them and give them seed to plant at a time when it still should be a famine. Now, if there's any questions concerning that, I'll address it next time, God willing. But just think about that. And we got 5 more years of the famine. And Jacob and them come down there in the second year of the famine. And the people, money and everything is spent, and they sold their lands and bodies to Pharaoh. Then if we think about a chronological connection, would it be righteous for me to say you see when I know it's going to fail? Or is it some kind of miracle that happened? So that's I'll leave you with that thought going forward. And now I will address Wayechi. I'm only going to focus on a few things in Wayechi, but I want to actually let everybody know, it starts in the 47th chapter of the Masoretic text, the 28th verse, and it continues all the way to the end of Genesis. So we'll get a chance to finish this book here before we go into the book of Shemot. But I wanted to cover that particular area there. I know there's a lot of stuff in between all the stuff that I didn't touch on. But I wanted to cover that particular area there because when we get into the book of Exodus, book of Shemot, that it's very important to understand the buildup and policies. We are living at a time today when you say, oh, certain policies, I just discovered that, the presidents of and his wife of Venezuela have been abducted, and there's always mixed feelings on both, no matter what, whatever what a superpower does. But I always say that if you have a leader in your particular area of your country, your city, you want your leader, or whatever, leader in any organization, anything, you want your leader, hopefully, if it's a good leader, look out for the best interests of the people he's leading. So sometimes he might, it might be some ethical areas there that might be questionable, moral issues that might be questionable. But if he's supposed to, you look him and inspect him to look out for the best interests of the people he's leading. And I would leave with that, in that sense, because we're going to say, in every empire, in every great, establishment, that you always look for the person in charge to look for the best interest of the establishment that he's over. And sometimes it could be ethical, sometimes it could be unethical. But you definitely want him to have first your interests at hand. So that's the question. I'm not going to speak politics, but I'm speaking in reference to, because we're dealing with the situation of one transition of Joseph dealing with the people of Egypt. And then when we get into the book of Exodus, we're going to have another situation where the people, the leader of Egypt, going to look out for the best interests of Egypt in that sense. So this is some of the things that, when you go through Genesis and that you think about world structure, moral issues, family problems. So it's all that's involved in the book of Genesis. So Wayechi, and he lived. And every time we talk about somebody living, it's always about they about ready to die or had died. Kaye Sarah, the life of Sarah. And we're talking about the life of her, she already passed. And Wayechi, Jacob said, and he lived. So that means right then and there that it's nothing beyond what he need to look for. And he lived. So he reached a zenith in life. And it's a lot of interesting things here, but I'm going to try to go through this here and focus on a couple of things in the early part of this. And Jacob lived in the land of Egypt 17 years. So the days of Jacob, the years of his life, were 147 years. And the time drew near that Israel must die. And he called his son Joseph and said unto him, if now I found favor in thy sight, put, I pray thee, thy hand under my thigh, and deal kindly and truly with me. Bury me not, I pray thee, in Egypt. But when I sleep with my forefathers, thou shalt carry me out of Egypt and bury me in their burying place. And he said, I will do as thou hast said. And he said, swear unto me. And he swore unto him, and Israel bowed down upon the bedhead. So I just want to point out a couple of things here. All right. He lived 17 years in the land of Egypt. Now, and that was his best life. He lived a good life when Joseph was around at 17. And he was able to match those 17 years again. But you also take care of him, which is one of his best lives there as well, for 17 years. Now, Abraham, on the other hand, gave his father, was able to be with his father for 75 years. And Isaac had the blessing of having his father around for 75 years. So it's a balance. It's a strange balance. There's 75 years with Abraham had with his father, and 75 years he had with his son. Jacob had 17 years with his son, being a father and taking care of him, raising him up. And then he had 17 years of assistance from his son in living. So this is something just to consider going forward. And some other areas there that we talk about burial here, when he knows time to die, that and use the word nah. Now, most people that speak Hebrew use nah means, which is noon aleph, means please. That's how you say please in Hebrew, nah. Today, we mostly say bavakasha, which is more like a request. And you really don't find that word. You don't find that word anywhere in the Tanakh. You find a similar word in the book of Esther, more like an Aramaic flavor, but you don't find the word babakasha for please, the word nah. And you have another term for the Hallels, which is ana, which is aleph nun aleph, which is an interesting thing in that area here. So the word nah is used 3 times here. And usually when the word nah is used, it's used in the sense of it's asking for something that you really, really don't feel that you deserve. And that's in the word nah. Now, the first time the word nah is actually used is in Genesis, the 19th chapter, around 27th verse, when Abraham mentioned and pleaded for Sodom and Gomorrah, and he said, "Hine nah, behold, please, because he asked for 50 righteous, would you spare the city?" Then when he said, if it's 5 being lacking, could the Creator agree? If it's 50 righteous, I'll spare the city. All right, 5 cities, that's 10 per city. But he said, if it's 5 lacking, and that's when the first time you find the word nah used in the book of Genesis. And so, as far as please, and when and most of our slick prayers and our halal prayers we use the word ana, and we halal is mostly coming from the Psalms, and when in the circles when we apply for forgiveness for certain sins, especially on Yom Kippur and fast days, we use the term ana. And the thing is that ana is a unique word in itself, and ana is only used in reference to the Creator. Nah itself, though we find it, Abraham speaking to the Creator, concerning himself, and you find that. But when the people actually address for something that they actually did wrong, like Moses, when he got his attributes, the word, ana, would be used in a sense like this here. It will stand for, when you say Adonai, when you give the part of the 13 attributes, the gematria or the numerical value for the tetragrammaton 26, ana, the numerical value is equal to 52, which is, Aleph is 1, Noon is 50, Aleph is 1, Anah 52. And we tend to employ that in certain Hallel prayers, which is David wrote a lot of the Hallel prayers. And when we address certain things on Yom Kippur. So now Jacob used the word Anah twice here, and it's a lot more stuff on the word Anah, but I just want to try to be a little bit brief on it because that's not my major focus on it. But it's used 3 times in the request that Jacob used. You know what I mean? And first of all, if I find grace in your eyesight, use the word nah first. And nah always come before what you ask for, And then he said, nah, when you talk about, nah, which is put your hand under my thigh, all right, which is a lot more, graphic than what the English might make it appear to be. But that's the next time it's used, and when it gets down to I lost my spot. All right, and then when he's talking about bury me, and it says, and it says, El na, please don't, what I mean? Tikureni, bury me trying. Please don't bury me in the land of Egypt. So those are area there, when he's talking about and he's asking for, and use the word nah 3 times in each aspect. And then when he beseeching his son to do that, because he can't do it himself. When a person deceased, he depends on those that's left behind him to treat the body with the respect, that should be. Now, and I want to make it clear too. When we think about the image of God and you think about, most people, I just want to make it clear for those people who might not really see it, or might see it from one perspective. When we talk about the image of God, we ain't talking about God took physical form. He got eyes, he got hands, he got legs, like we got those anthropomorphisms, and we describe God from our body parts. When man is made in the image of God, that means we have anger, love, we have desire, we have fear, respect. I mean, we have emotions. So we have creativity. So when we talk about God made man in his image, we ain't talk about the physical form that man was made in. So them is not the same. That's not what we mean. Now, most people think that's maybe not from our particular circles that we talk about the physical form of man. That's why most times most gods and stuff and idol worships look like human forms. That's not what it is. It's what the essence of the human being. Not only the ruach, but the nefesh, the spirit, the creativity, all that, the spirituality of the human being. That is what we have that not even the angels have. The angels don't have creativity. They have assignments. That's what they have, assignments. We are given minds, thought processes where we can create, and that's one of the things that we have. So I just want to bring those particular points out as we go here. And so now another question is, if Joseph had agreed, he'll do as he said. Why make him swear? Why bind himself to an oath? And he bind himself to an oath. Yaakov wanted him to bind himself to an oath because, that's what you want. You plan on doing that, but I don't want nothing to get in the way to stop you. And perhaps also that you being like a father figure to Pharaoh, understand that the Egyptian might want to keep me here for some reason, like a talisman, great man, statesman, father of a statesman. I don't want him to persuade you and say, no, let him stay here. We'll deify him, whatever the case is. It's very, very all the viewpoints in reference to that. But I need to get my body back to the place my family, purchased. I don't want to be buried here. That's bottom line. Now, there's a lot of very rabbinic traditions and commentaries on that area there, but I'm keeping it in a basic area that Yaakov don't want anything to stop Joseph from that commitment. And now, also, it's interesting, he called Joseph and not no other ones because he's the only one that will have the authority to really make sure this is carried out. Out of all the sons there, he'd be the only one that would have the authority. He was able to hold Shimon hostage for a moment until they returned. So if he was able to hold Shimon hostage for a moment, and he recognized that at this point in time, who I could depend on to handle my business would be Joseph because of his position here. And that is sent for me as a guest of the state. So he swore. And it goes on to say, and it came to pass after these things that one said unto Joseph, behold, thy father is sick. And he took with him his two sons, Manasseh and Ephraim. And one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh to see thee. And he strengthened himself and sat upon the bed. Now, before I get into that, also, a lot of people think about the dreams. I don't want to be remiss if I go into verse 3 on that particular portion, is that he sat up on the bed. For a bow in the head of the bed. He bowed in the head of the bed before, after Joseph made that oath. I want to make Joseph had two dreams, and I always said dreams. The first dream, when Joseph recognized the brothers, they didn't recognize him, and he confirmed who he recognized him. He wanted to make that dream come true, that the 11 bowed down to him. So that's why he wanted Benjamin to come, and he created all that rules there. But he never tried to force that with his father for whatever reason, and it never happened. The second, the dream that we read about, not that which is a third dream and all, but the second one that we read about and get an understanding of it, that never ever manifested itself in the fullness thereof. Though you're gonna find some commentaries on it, you won't find anything related remotely to that in the book, in that sense, in the Tanakh. So I just want to bring that part out as well. So also, we find out that the first time you read Abraham being an old man, okay, healthy old man. You read about Isaac, old man, Zakwan, but he got poor eyesight. Now we get to our father Jacob, old man, poor eyesight, and the first individual we read in the book to get sick. Now, I'm not saying he's the first person in history to get sick, but it's the first one we read out of all these different centuries of people in the book where the word kalei is ever used, which is sick. First person we read, that's sick. And there's a lot of, different commentaries on that, but I just want to point that out, that you don't read about anybody else getting sick, having issues here and there, but never sick. You read about plagues, not sick. So now we got, this is a new thing. When you talk about the plague of sickness, you say, wow, you always make me wonder, what brought this about? And Joseph hurry up and brought his sons, to his father. And in third verse said, Jacob said unto Joseph, God Almighty appeared unto me at Luz in the land of Canaan, and blessed me, and said unto me, behold, I will make thee fruitful and multiply thee, and I will make of thee a company of people, and I will give this land to thy seed after thee for everlasting possession. Fifth verse. And now thy two sons who were born unto thee in the land of Egypt before I came unto thee into Egypt are mine, Ephraim and Manasseh, even as Reuben and Shimon. You notice how Jacob phrased the name already. Ephraim he mentioned first before he mentioned Manasseh. So he knew their name. He's cognizant. All right. He's alert. But it would seem like it's not as we read further if we don't pick up these little small things here. So the order of Ephraim and Manasseh is different as opposed to the proper order of Reuben and Shimon, which is Reuben being the oldest and Simeon being the younger one. Ephraim is the younger one, and Manasseh is the older one. Shall be mine, and thy issue that thou begettest after them shall be thine, and they shall be called after the name, of their brethren in their inheritance. All right. So I mean, if you have any more kids, they're gonna be under one of that group, either from tribe of Manasseh or tribe of Ephraim. Period. Even though they might have their own particular fathers, Jacob adopted them, and they fall in that category. Also, when we think about that area there, you would say, okay, this is a hint of two guys being replaced. In that sense, even as they say them, so they say, I'm giving you a double portion already because these guys are older than you, and they're gonna have each one of these tribes gonna have as much authority and territory as you. And it goes on to say further in 7th verse, and as for me, when I came to Padam, Rachel died unto me in the land of Canaan in the way when there was still some way to come unto Ephraim, and I buried her there in the way of Ephraim, the same as Bethlehem. All right. Now, what's interesting here, when we go to the history before I get to the 8th verse, is that he went to a lot of trouble to tell Joseph to bury him, pleading with please, nah, and yet make him swear with a binding oath, vow to do that, a vow. And yet he didn't do that with his mother, and he bringing this up now, before he blessed the sons and giving them a promotion for that. So he bringing out that, it wasn't just that she died. And that's what's interesting. It wasn't just she died. A part of me had left with her. She died to me. And which could be taken a lot of various ways. Analyze the verbiage. And it goes on in the 8th verse. And Israel behold Joseph's sons, and said, now you notice we thought about when they talk about that, and one told Jacob and said, behold, thy son Joseph cometh, and Israel gathered himself. The name change, very important, because now I'm saying I'm no longer on this earthly plane. I'm going from another level. The name, my laudable name, what I am became, my accomplishments. So they're using the term Israel. Israel behold Joseph and his sons and said, who are these? All right. And Joseph said unto his father, they are my sons whom God had given me here. And he said, bring them, I pray thee, unto me, and I will bless them. All right. So now, when I'm sure when Joseph brought his two sons there to meet him, you say, well, what did he bring him there for a blessing? Did he know he's gonna get a blessing before he died? Or his father's sick, I want you to, acknowledge my sons, accept my sons, and also tell you about the 17-year relationship in Egypt. How close was Joseph and Jacob throughout those 17 years? That's a factor. And it goes on to say, now, bring them, I pray thee, and I will bless them. Now, the eyes of Israel was dim for age, so they could not see. And he brought them near unto him, and he kissed them and embraced them. Almost like a replay with his father Isaac, before I get into the 11th verse. And what's interesting as we get into this particular area here is that since it's almost like a replay with Isaac, that when we think about could not see, we think of total blindness. And the thing is that when the term is used, it's like eyes are dim, poor light. As you get older, most people, when they get past 40, their pupils don't flex, and become more hard, and so more light don't get in. So people say, I need more brighter light to read. Even though I might wear glasses, if I got real bright light on the page, I can read without my glasses, but but it makes it better. Glasses couldn't expand it, but I can read without them, and most people can. And they have what they call today a legal blindness. That means people will see, their vision gets so bad they see like a blur of figures, but they can see. But when we think about blind, sometimes it's people that don't see anything at all, completely. It's almost like a guy got his eyes taken out, hoodwinked, all right, and you don't see anything at all. But usually when people age and stuff like that, and their eyes get dimmer, they can see, but they see so poorly that they actually handicapped. They can't tell. Sometimes they can't. They lose their peripheral. Which is going from the sides like that. They might lose depth perception early, and also, coloration, all that. But they're not blind as we would think of blind being. And that's so a lot of times when we look at the thing about Israel, being blind, could not see, we think of complete blind, almost like a guy got his eyes taken out. And that's not the case in this area here, and not the case with Isaac either at the time. and it goes on to say, and he mentioned, why would I be able to see your kids? 17 years, there's a lot happened in 17 years. That my eyes went that bad in 17 years, but I can't see anything, completely in darkness. So it's and nothing happening to me. So this is an issue there. And then why at such a young age he become his eyes become so dim like that? Well, we consider a great age these days, but could have been mourning for 22 years, crying, boo-hooing, crying, boo-hooing, crying, boo-hooing, you know, making his face frown, you know, don't want to see life, don't want to look at anything. So that's one of the things, you know, we got, you know, consider going forward. And 11 verses, and Israel said to Joseph, I had not thought to see thy face, and lo, God had let me see thy seed also. And that's what a lot of people focus on and say, well, if you're blind, I can see. You can see something. All right. And Joseph brought them out from between his knees, and he fell down on his face to the earth. And Joseph took them both, Ephraim in his right hand, and towards Israel's left hand, and Manasseh in his left hand, towards Israel's right hand, and brought them near unto him. And Israel stretched out his right hand and laid it upon Ephraim's head, and who was the younger, and his left hand upon Manasseh's head, guiding his hands wittingly, for Manasseh was the firstborn, and he blessed Joseph and said, all right, mind you now, he blessed Joseph and said, all right, how did he bless Joseph? By blessing his children. You know, this is the first blessing Joseph get, by having his children blessed. In that sense, Abraham got a real blessing, Isaac got a real blessing, Jacob got a real blessing, because of the love that God had. And as Moses reminded us in the Deuteronomy, because of the love that God had for our forefathers, that's why he took care of the nation of Israel, because of the love of the forefathers. So this is a similar thing that's going on here. And he said, and he blessed Joseph and said, the God before whom my fathers Abraham and Isaac did walk, the God who had been my shepherd all my life long unto this day, the angel who had redeemed me from all evil, bless the lad, and let my name be named in them, in the name of my fathers Abraham and Isaac, and let them grow into a multitude in the midst of the earth. All right, now hold it right there. Before I go to the 17th verse, the word, when you use the word last, let me see where I'm at. It's 16th verse. Let me get the Hebrew in that chapter there. All right. First, we bless them with the God. I mean, the angel that protected them, so they know they had some divine protection. All right. One moment here. And he used the word, Yehudah et Hanarim. You know, Neberek net Harim. That means right then and there. Yehudah is actually in the singular. Yehudah is in the singular. It should be in the plural. Blessing the lads, because it should be agreement with the plural, but it's in the singular. So it was one blessing for two people, and the only difference was which hand was up on one as opposed to the other. And what we find here is that they didn't have an issue with it. It was Joseph that happened to have the issue with it in this area, and it's very, very important going forward, because now as we pick up in the next verse, the 18th verse, and Joseph said unto his father, not so, my father, for this is the firstborn. Put thy right hand upon his head. And his father refused and said, Yadati beni, Yadati beni. I know, my son, I know. I know it. He also shall become a people, and he shall be great. Howbeit, his younger brother shall be greater than he, and his seed shall become a multitude of nations. And he blessed them that day. So he blessed them, and so he said he know that he's in his right mind. When he crushed it over, and he crushed the hands on purpose. It's not an accident that you reach over like this. It's not even an accident. Knowing how his father would present two people before him from between his knees. And he noticed the humbleness of it and the authority of a father over a son is that they wasn't ashamed to be between their father's knees bowing down, and also being presented before their grandfather, who they only had the experience of 17 years with. And these guys, if we look at these guys' age, you figure 17 plus, say, another, say, just estimate 17, 5. You're talking 20 and 22-year-old guys. Talking about guys in the early 20s, at least, being presented to their father as such. And it goes on to say, because I want to get it to a little bit further here, not to go too long. It said, all right. In the 20th verse, and he blessed them that day, and saying, by thee shall Israel bless, saying, God make thee as Ephraim and Manasseh. And he set Ephraim before Manasseh. Before I go there, that's a blessing that rabbinically they use today. Every Friday night before they say Kiddush over the wine and everything like that, before you're going into the Shabbat itself, if you have sons, you make them as, Ephraim and Manasseh. You put that blessing over them. As bless them as God bless them as Ephraim and Manasseh. Or if you had daughters, there's a two, make them like the matriarchs, Raquel, Sarah, Rivka, then it's Raquel and Leah. And they put Raquel before Leah in most instances. So that's when you do it for the daughters. Now, you will say, why not bless them in the name of Abraham, bless them in the name of Isaac, and bless them in the name of Yaakov? Being, it said, God told Moses that his memorial is, the God of Abraham, the God of Isaac, and the God of Jacob. That be his memorial forever. Why not use that? Because each one had problems in their life concerning offspring. Each one of them. Sibling rivalry somewhere there, sibling contest, even family contesting. The only thing we read about, a lot of family issues and stuff like that, and sibling rivalry with Abraham. You find out his nephew and him didn't get along after a while. They had to part ways. He had sons, Isaac, Isaac and Ishmael. Ishmael was a little bit more abusive toward Isaac. He had to get that away. You had Isaac had only two sons, and it was almost going to be a bloodbath between the two sons. And then Joseph, we know what happened, his story there. This Manasseh didn't have an issue with the other hand being on him. Same blessing, but on a lesser scale. But the same blessing, he had no jealousy. And that's the first time you don't have sibling rivalry. And just what Yaakov wanted. And also another term that we could think about in this area here is that when we think about the meaning of the name Manasseh, caused me to forget, my father's house and my toil. Now I call this boy name every day. Can I ever forget my father's house? No, I don't want to forget my father's house. I don't want to forget where I'm from. The name Manasseh, and he called the name Manasseh, but it's okay to remember your roots. it's okay never to forget your roots. And even though you're in a foreign land, you always remember from whence you come. So from whence you came, rather. So you always remember that. So there's nothing wrong with remembering your roots and where you come from. But Ephraim means God made me fruitful in the land of my affliction. So in other words, though I'm in the land of my affliction, I'm still making do and prospering. And then what is interesting is the blessing that he blessed him with. You know what I mean? When he talking about being fruitful and multiplying, it's like they used a term in the Hebrew, which I'm just going. I want you just look it up later on yourself, because I want to try to get to another point in my time. Is that use the word like fishes on land and the earth. All right. So now, like fishes on the earth, fishes stay in the water. Usually the earth is not where fishes stay. Usually fishes on dry land, like a fish on dry land. That means you're about to die. You're not supposed to be prosperous. So why use that blessing for them? Fishes thrive better in the water. They don't thrive better in the land. So why is that? So when we talk about the blessings in Genesis, those was the ones that was blessed basically right away. Was the creatures of the waters. So now, why would that? Now we know, and no matter how you use the word dog, it only means fish in Hebrew, and fish is supposed to be in the water, not on earth. So you can look that up yourself and go into it. I'm just trying to speed through this a little bit. I'll accept questions later, if any. Is that one, to be able to thrive in a hostile environment is what an Israelite's supposed to do. To be able to make progress and grow in an environment that's not conducive to you is what an Israelite's supposed to do. So therefore, how much more in an environment where the environment is conducive, how great can you be? So when he talk about like fish on land, it's saying that Jacob meant for it to be good, even though literally it sounds like that doesn't make sense. But to say that he meant, and we know Jacob meant to bless him for good. So when you think about Ephraim and Manasseh and their names, it's okay not to forget where you come from. That's all well and good. But it's even better to make your surroundings, prosperous. Be able to effectuate change where you at, where you can blossom and grow where you at, no matter where you put at. So is whether the sanctuary is there or not, we consider the sanctuary by ourselves being the sanctuary, being a holy spot. So therefore, when they talk about fish on the land or in the earth, but multiply like that, be fruitful like that, that means that we will, no matter what the outcome is, be prosperous. And that's what Jacob seen, that Joseph, you made it in a land that's not yours. You said you was fruitful in a strange land, a land of your affliction. You're not supposed to be fruitful when you've been afflicted, but you did it. You proved it. So if you prove that you could be fruitful in the land of your affliction, then, and you didn't forget where you came from, then this why I got to give the greater blessing to what this is, because it's not just a message for them. It's a message for all the other tribes of Israel. And that's one of the things about blessing on Friday night. But let me just move on just a little bit more. I don't want to stay on that too much longer, but get to a couple of these blessings in the next few minutes. And in 21st verse, and Israel said to Joseph, behold, I die, but God will be with you and bring you back into the land of your fathers. Moreover, I have given thee one portion above thy brethren, which I took out of the hands of the Amorites with my sword and with my bow. Now, that was a question that came up on. My brother asked me that, and oddly enough, I was discussing that question during Kiddush yesterday when I was at the the Beit Knesset, and then when I after Mosaic Shabbat, a brother asked me about that same question, and I says it's strange because what we discussed it earlier today when I was sitting down during occasion at a table having a lunch, and I said one of the things is this that you got to say. You said, well, did Jacob really go to battle? We don't read where he ever fought before, and I like to bring back and just go quickly on that. So I'm gonna be a little longer today, but hopefully you can tolerate me for a moment. And I'm going back to the 33rd chapter of Genesis. Just a little bit, just point out a verse. 33rd chapter of Genesis, 2 verses, 18 to the end, 19. And Jacob came in peace to the city of Shechem, which is in the land of Canaan, which he came from Paddan Aram, and encamped before the city. And he brought a parcel of ground, which he had spread his tent at the hands of the children of Hamor, Shechem's father, for 100 pieces of money. And he erected there an altar and called it El Elohei Yisrael. All right. So that we know, according to that, he brought a parcel and he tried to settle there. He owned property there. We know also later on that became the territory of Joseph of Ephraim. We also know the Mishkan was put over there for a while. We also know that Joseph Bones was actually laid in the city of Shechem. All right. What he did when we talk about the fight was the issue is because after Dinah got raped by Shechem, who was the prince over there, and held hostage, and Simeon and Levi went and destroyed that city of men, killed all the men in the city, and they spoiled the city, that Jacob had to move out and say, because all the inhabitants might come and destroy the family. Out of fear, all the inhabitants would come. But the Creator protected them by putting the fear of them upon all the inhabitants of the city. So they won't gang up and say, we're going to come after this one family, this Jacob family here. We're not going to come after them because for some reason I'm afraid. So we ain't going to do anything. So all the families would not unite to destroy this family. That's the slave, not only nobility, but a whole city of men, in their weakest moment, through guile. And God protected them. So now, since God protected them through that particular episode of guile, you got to say, okay, now what happens, at the time? Well, we know later on when Joseph was sold, before when Jacob sent him, he sent his sons the check on them at in Shechem, when they were dealing with the sheep. So Joseph go to Shechem, from Hebron. They're not there. He meet a dude and said, excuse me. he met a guy that I'm thinking about talking yesterday. He met a guy, a man, and the guy said, your brothers went to Dothan. So now, we know what happened to Joseph when he met up with his brothers in Dothan. But in between there, from rabbinic literature and commentary, you find from the time that they left, after they did the massacre in Shechem, and not being there for a while, and Jacob sending Joseph to say, find out how their brother's doing, whether they well and whether the flock is well, and Shechem, that let you know that it had to be some tension left. But what happened was when you move out of a place, people take over the place. And he had to go get it back. So when he took it with his sword and his bow, he had to reclaim the spot. According to most traditional commentaries, he had to reclaim the spot that he had purchased before. And that's what he was talking about giving to Joseph. And Joseph had to know the spot already and had to know that somewhat the episode concerning that already, to recognize that when it came, that when they went to take a plot of land and they would get the inheritance in the book, when they was get close to the inheritance in the book of Numbers in the 40th year, that automatically fell to Joseph, the descendants of Joseph, and under the tribe of Ephraim. And that's where Joseph bones are actually laid at. So that's way, I know there's a lot of questions came out and people was up in the air concerning that. And this is something that, we had pretty much had a grip on from my background coming up a long time ago, that you move from a spot, somebody live in your house, sometimes you got to get them out your house, and sometimes it takes a little roughness to get them out your house because you left it vacant for a long time. And that's what happened with that spot, Shechem. And that's the area that he's talking about. And that's the area that went to the tribe of Ephraim, not to the tribe of Manasseh, to the tribe of Ephraim. So those are some of the areas there. And when we talk about that area there, so whatever the fight was, it wasn't much of a fight, whatever that is. But Jacob's stating this, and a lot of times we could say, Judah, when Jacob said, "How you deal with falsely with me, but telling the man about all your business, telling Pharaoh the guy Joseph about who I have at home, what's my situation at home," and they said, "Man, straightly ask us." We didn't see that at first, but we see it later on when Judah addressed those same issues in front of the guy, and he could have said, "I didn't say all that." So we see that was manifest there. Now, when we get to the end of the book, it's another matter that's not, played out, because then other areas with other things are playing. So let me just try to get to a couple more points in here and a few blessings. So I hope I satisfy people questions on it concerning the battle that Jacob had that we don't see clearly over a parcel of land. And from the verbiage that he asked, is it well with the brothers? And if it's well with the flock? Because they opened some place where we had beef before. And in 49th verse, I'm going to read a couple of the blessings. I'm going to read all. I'm going to stop at Judah though. But I'm going to read a few of them. All right. And it says, and Jacob called unto his sons and said, "Gather yourselves together, that I may tell you that which may befall you in the end of days. And summon yourself and hear, ye sons of Jacob, and hearken unto Israel your father. Reuben, thou art my firstborn, my might, and the first fruit of my strength, the excellent of dignity, the excellent of power, unstable as water. Have not thou the excellency, because thou wentest up to thy father's bed? Then defilest thou it? He went up to my couch." All right. Now imagine, he's saying this in front of all your brothers. Right there, you got an audience right there. You have an audience, and everybody here, Reuben, I'm calling your name, and stating this here. And then it goes on and it say, Simeon and Levi, I'm gonna group you all together. Our brethren, weapons of violence, their kinship. Let my soul not come into their council, unto their assembly, let my glory not be united. For in their anger, they slew a man, and their self-will they hogged their oxen. Cursed be their anger, for it was fierce, and their wrath, for it was cruel. I would divide them in Jacob and scatter them in Israel. All right. So now you got three guys already. Simeon and Levi coupled together. But yet he only cursed their anger in a concentrated bunch. But everybody need that anger. That's why I said, I'm going to spread it out. I'm going to sprinkle a little bit over here, a little bit over there, because they represent a thing called Gevurah, strength. And when they get locked into something, it's like a pit bull. You know what I mean? They locked in, and they don't turn around from it. And that's what he said. Too much of that is no good. But the rest of the tribes need some of that. So I'm going to scatter you. And you don't scatter something that's not good. You scatter something that is good. And also the thing is, sometimes people learn from their weaknesses how to improve. Hence, that's why you find that the tribe of Levi wind up being, accepted as, God's chosen tribe later on, because they actually learned from what their father said. And actually, according to most tradition, the last one we read about age of dying was Levi himself, the actual patriarch of the tribe of Levi. All the other brethren died before them, but Joseph was the first one to die. As we get to this at the end of this particular portion, and I just want to bring up Yehudah right quick. Yehudah, shall our brother in praise. Thy hand shall be on the neck of thy enemies. Thy father's son shall bow down before thee. Judah is a lion's well. From the prey, my son, thou art going up. And he swooped down. He couches as a lion and as a lioness. Who shall rouse him? Thy scepter shall not depart from Yehudah, nor the Lord rule the staff from between his feet. As long as men come to Shiloh, unto him shall the obedience of the people be. And it goes on and further, et cetera, et cetera. But one of the things I want to say that when Rebecca was naming her children, when Leah was naming her children, that actually when she wanted her husband to be with her, all trying to get the husband, when you got Lewi, and that's a strange thing because it says he named Lewi, but yet, most of us except Leah naming Lewi, but in the Hebrew, it's he named Lewi. So could that be God in a subtle manner calling this guy gonna be the one that joined everybody together on a particular purpose? When she got to her fourth son, she forgot about the husband and said, look, I'm satisfied that I have children. So therefore, I'm going to praise God, and thank God. So Hodu, actually is thanks. It's part of the song. And you know it comes from a guy like David, So, and you got the word Hodu. So it means thanks, praise, or admitting, So we get that from, our mother Leah. And she's the first one in the scriptures that actually thanked God for her lot in that sense. And that's the only one. And what's interesting is there's a lot of things made about the name, because the tetragrammaton of God's name is in Yehudah's name, and the third letter is a dalet, and the dalet itself actually represents a door. So you hear that New Testament stuff where you talk about I'm the door and all that kind of stuff. But basically on both sides is balance of praise. Then when we get to the other tribes, everybody have a unique thing in there. But Jacob didn't call them to bless them. He called them to tell them the end of times. And that's what he called them for, to do that. And for some reason, it just didn't work out like that. And there's a lot of commentaries on that, but I'm not going to speak on that at this point in time. And we know that when Jacob, I'm just going to fast forward, that Jacob dies and give it the ghost after, he blessed all of them. But one of the things that they all got a blessing, knowing your weaknesses, because at the end of that particular chapter, towards the 28th verse, and these are the 12 tribes of Israel, and this is it that their father spoke unto them and blessed them. And everyone according to his blessing, he blessed them. So that lets you know they all got a blessing, even though we might think it's not a blessing. Knowing where I'm weak at, knowing what I need to strengthen up, and tell me about myself. Sometimes you might like to hear about yourself, but if you want to do better, you need to know about yourself. People pay to go to psychiatrists to find out about themselves. So Jacob giving them this here for free. And I'm just going to touch on it a little bit after going to next week. But basically, just to tie in some things, we know Jacob died. He's embalmed, 40-day process, 30 days of mourning, the Egyptian mourning for 70 days. He escorted to the cave of Machpelah and he's brought back, and Joseph and them come back. But and then we know that the sons talk about my father said, forgive us. Now we know if Jacob knew the situation, we'd have read about that. And he would talk about that, but Joseph kept a distance. So, and Joseph, and irony is that you never read where Joseph ever forgave him, in the book. And you read it, just say, am I God? It hurt him. He still felt the way. After 17 years of being around him again, he still felt away. But he said, am I God? So when people say Joseph forgave him, you never read that in the scriptures at all. And he does, but he did feed him and say give him bread. And they talk about the famine again. So now when I left off about selling seed, giving the people seed, and it was supposed to be 2 years already in, what you gonna plant unless the land might have been a change. So that's something for people to ponder, because 2 years now, and you give me seed to plant, and already relocated me, and you're talking about give me back a fifth part, and then here 17 years later, we're talking about we still got I gotta still feed y'all. You can't take care of yourself. So it's a lot of stuff going on in this particular portion. And as we get to the end of the book, I'll just say Kazak be strong and strong, and let's make one another strong. And it'll be a segue going into the next portion of Shemot. But I will touch on some of the things I didn't touch on here. So that pretty much wraps up the major part. Yeah. And some say Shalom Aleichem or Shabbat Shalom, and mistakes for my own. Leave questions or comments in the chat, and I'll try to address them the best I can. I barely.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
Yeah, Torah about Nasik, very interesting portion. I did it yesterday, so it's a lot that I got out of it, and that's why I said we go over Genesis over and over, and we go over these portions over and over, and you get something new out of it all the time, every time you go over it. And it just shows that we never stop learning, correct?
Right, that's right.
We never stop learning. We never stop learning. So, Torah Abba Nasik, and I pray that the Most High God will continue to bless you and keep you. And I pray that the Most High God will continue to be with Kobe Yisrael scattered in the four corners of the earth. And to all of you, Yah willing, we will see each other again next week. Shalom, shalom, and everyone have a great Shabbat night sleep. And hopefully we see you in the AM. Shalom, shalom. Hallelujah.
Let's get knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah, knowledge, wisdom, understanding. We'll do our standing. All praises to the Most High, His laws and commandments. The hot CHOKMAH BINAH here to push it through your speakers. Judgment, truth, and love should be coming from the leaders. Yeah.